Hi, and welcome to The Curling Show, the podcast that brings you interviews with the sport's top athletes and the people who shape the game. I'm Dean Gemmel, and in this edition, we talk to yet another top curler who's going to be part of a new Cross Canada lineup next season. 20 times in the Scotties Tournament of Hearts, 6 times in the Women's World Championships, 7 times in the Canadian Mixed Championships, and now once on the sports leading podcast. Colleen Jones, welcome to The Curling Show.
Oh, thank you. Nice to be here.
Let's start with the most recent news, the announcement that you'll be part of yet another cross-country lineup next season with Georgina Wheatcroft and a young front end representing Ontario and British Columbia. When you stepped in for Kelly Law at the Players' Championship, did you envision something like this happening?
No, not at all. I was thrilled to kind of go to the Players' Championship when Georgina called. I just figured it was sort of a one-off and go in and fill in, and I really enjoyed it. It was nice to be sort of back in the big leagues, and we did remarkably well for sort of a first-time team together. And we got to the semifinals before losing to Jennifer Jones, and which was a great game. So that's definitely kind of, I think, after we just sort of thought, well, this kind of worked, didn't it? So it's neat to do, and especially the way curling has changed, you're able to do it as a route to getting to the Olympic trials.
Did you and Georgina know each other especially well before you played in the Players?
Only as rivals. We've competed against each other for so long, both with all her years with Kelly Law, and also she played for Jennifer Jones last year, so we wound up playing them at the Olympic trials and also at the Scott Tournament of Hearts. So certainly she had been a rival for a long, long time, and I certainly just always respected her ability. So that was the only kind of knowledge I had of her, was just simply as a competitor.
So and then things worked out well there. So you've got actually the most truly cross Canada team with Ontario, BC, Nova Scotia.
That's right, 2 oceans and something in the middle called Ontario. So it's
you just need a Quebecer in there.
We probably maybe as a fifth or
maybe
a coach
a model
or something.
For Confederation.
Actually, Rob Kretz is going to coach us from Alberta, so I guess there's that connection too. But
oh boy,
it'll be an interesting kind of experiment to see if you can make it work. Sort of, certainly going outside the traditions of curling, where you always look just to who's at your curling club, and then eventually you started kind of expanding beyond that and looking, okay, who else is in our city? And we've never even looked across the province to think of who else you could add to the roster with talent. So it's going to be an interesting experiment to see how do you kind of practice independently and just show up ready to curl for the Bond field. Speaking
of that, how different do you think your preparations will be? You've never been a big tour player. You've really built teams for playdowns in the Scotties. So how big of an adjustment do you expect that to be?
I think that it is definitely adjustment, and you're right. I've always planned the season simply around the national championships, and so now it's a different mindset of being ready to go and showing up for all of these Grand Slam events and making sure that you have your A game. And I think that you just have to kind of have a different approach to the season. I've always looked at the kind of September to December time of a curling season as sort of just, I'm warming up, I'm finding my game, and now you have to just call it up on demand time almost, and be ready to play every time you step on the ice. That there is no warm-ups, and it's just time to get moving. And that's the advantage of sort of what the World Curling Tour and what the women coming onto it has changed the face of the game, really, because now your emphasis just isn't on gearing up for your provincial championships end of January, gearing up for nationals the end of February. Now it truly is sort of something you're looking at and realizing, okay, if we do well in this event, we're one step closer to trying to get an Olympic trial spot. So, be ready, be focused, and bring your A game.
I haven't been the least bit surprised to see so many teams develop like this. I think after the last Olympic trials, it was pretty obvious that that's become the big carrot, even just to play in it. I think everybody wants to go, but they realize just playing in that Olympic trials is a big deal.
Well, that's absolutely right. The Olympic trials, and I've played in the last couple, and it's a thrill. It really is different than the national championship. it's really the creme de la creme. And every time you go to play, it was like, oh my goodness, we're playing this team, and now we're playing this team, and now we're playing this team. Like there was never, it was really the who's who. And so it's a great event to play in, but of course it would be an even better event to win. So looking forward to trying to get back into that.
You talked about moving back into the big leagues. Was it difficult last season, maybe more difficult than you imagined it would be, to play a limited schedule with a team that was more removed from the spotlight than you've been used to?
It was definitely, I enjoyed the year a lot, and I think that I learned a lot, and it was nice to play third, actually. You kind of, when you step back from the position you're used to and see the game from another perspective, you learn an awful lot about things that when you're skipping, you're just your blinders are on and you almost don't get to see. So it was nice to kind of play the game at another position. It was definitely an interesting year. There's no question that because all of the things that my other girls that we won the Canadian Championships had done, we were so lucky to have played in all the great events, the Continental Cup, the Canada Cup, the Skins Game, the World Championships. We were spoiled beyond belief, always playing on arena ice on great conditions. We played on the men's circuit, so we were playing against, every time we stepped onto the ice, it seemed like we were playing a really terrific opponent. And then when you take a step back from that and suddenly you're playing Tuesday Night Super League at the Mayflower Curling Club, it was definitely
tough,
an eye-opener. It was definitely a big adjustment. I remember Cal Trulson from Norway saying to me once, there's two kinds of curling. There's curling club ice curling, and there's arena curling. And he said the real only curling is arena curling. The other curling is barely curling. And I had to say, after I was kind of going, I totally see what he means.
It can be demanding to go to that again, I guess, isn't it?
Well, the conditions, the arena ice now is just so wonderful to play on. It swings nice, the rocks are good. And on curling club ice, it's always a little heavier and a little straighter as a rule, at least in these parts. So it was nice to kind of, we were definitely spoiled during our run of 5 Canadian Championships to have been able to play in all the great events. And so, it was a bit of it was an eye-opener season for me, but it was a really important learning year for me. And as I mentioned, playing third really allowed me to see the game from another perspective and understand sort of what it's like to have a skip yelling at you sometimes.
You ended up throwing skip rocks in the provincials, did you not?
The last couple of games I did. I didn't start the provincial that way, and I was, I wasn't calling the game at the provincial, so I just threw last rocks, and that was interesting too. It was all really interesting, and I really enjoyed the girls, and we learned a lot. So that was all good.
Hey, let's talk about that team that most people identify you with, the one that you won 5 national titles with. After it was decided that the team wouldn't be curling together anymore, it was only a few days before your 3 former teammates announced that they would be competing together. At the time, would betrayed be too strong a word to describe how you felt?
Back at the time, that's how it felt. With time, I see them a lot, and their heart really isn't into it in a competitive way. I think we've found. I will always adore all 3 of them, and think the world of them. They during our time together, when I would come up with a wacky idea of, let's only play men's spiels, they'd jump right in behind me and go, yeah, great idea. And if I would say, let's go do a summer camp in this spot, they would say, yeah, great. Like they really, throughout the whole kind of time we were together, from that 99 season, our first year together, right until the end, they just kind of embraced all of my ideas and were totally supportive of everything. And I think what we had together was incredibly special. And so now I look back and say, everything happens for a reason. They really had lost. What you need in order to keep competing really, really well is big desire. And they were pretty, they'll all tell you that they were pretty kind of exhausted from the years of doing it and cranking it up every season. And I wish them all the best. And I think actually they'll have you'll probably see that team back at the Stotties, because on sheer talent alone, that team is so good that even if they don't have the desire, they can't help but make a lot of shots because they've got a lot of talent. So,
how do you think you'd feel watching them play at the Scotties, knowing that you're not going to be in it next year?
I'd be fine. And you know what? Even not playing in the Scotties is just a place that I've kind of gone, now the goal for me is really about Olympic trials and trying to get to that spot again. And, if I had another Scotties title, which I would love to have, but the difference between having 3 Scotties and 4 Scotties, 5 or 6 or even 7, it doesn't change the way you feel or approach life any differently. It's just all, it's a great experience. But I think I have to kind of say, okay, that chapter I've already finished. And now the next chapter is all about, kind of just, again, trying to get a little bit better and trying to get to the Olympics. It's just one of those big goals that, it's great to have goals, and that's definitely the biggest carrot a person can have.
It sure is right now. I mean, and I can understand that, that the John Meade was on the show and talked about the fact that he was watching the Brier and felt sort of disappointed that he wouldn't play in it, but realized he just couldn't put that time in through the playdown season anymore. But still wanted to play at a high level.
Yeah, and it is a lot of time, actually. Playing in all the Grand Slams will be time-consuming, but then if you add it your provincial playdowns and the national championships, that's another 2.5 weeks of time off from work you need, and we're all working full-time jobs, and that's also 2.5 weeks away from your family. So it is quite a demanding run. And then you've got, of course, your kind of zone playdowns you go to before the provincials. So it is a lot of time, and I think that with the way the Olympic trials are set up, that you can focus on the Grand Slams to earn your points in order to try to get a spot. I think it opens the door for more people to be saying, you know what, let's go this route instead of the traditional route.
You're the first to admit, I think, that you're not a kid anymore. But with growing older, there's some things that become a little easier, including a family that's more self-sufficient. Do you think you're at a point in your life maybe where it's actually a little bit easier to focus on curling than in the past?
Absolutely. Like I've got one. My oldest son Zach is in third-year university and certainly doesn't need his mom hanging around anymore, but still can write the checks for him and make him lots of supper. But he's in his own apartment. So, and then my son Luke, he's going to be 14, and he actually still needs his mom a lot. But it makes it way easier than when they were 6 years old and attached themselves to the leg, saying, no, don't go. So then they just came to the curling club with me. But it's definitely kind of an easier stage of life because the kids are becoming definitely more independent. My husband's totally supportive of just, life's a big adventure. Go give it a whirl and see what happens. And if you feel like you can still play and compete, and especially now that the 8N games, my God, it's going to get easier. You kind of go, well, just keep plugging along, and so long as you still love it and have the kind of desire, it's certainly well worth pursuing.
Do you like the 8N format?
Well, I like it. I love a 10N game, but I think the 8N game is a terrific one for being able to squeeze it into the tournament kind of schedule so that people take a lot of time off for these events from work, and this pretty much takes a day out of the equation for a tournament, so that's a good thing. It definitely requires work on my end to kind of remember where I'm at in the game because there's certain strategy you've got to start thinking about in the 6th and 7th end in order to kind of negotiate your way into the position you need coming home that, frankly, not all the times I'm thinking of right in the 6th and 7th end, if you know what I mean. So I almost still have to think when I'm in the 7th end of an 8N game, I start telling myself, this is the 9th end. You need to blank this end, or whatever it is that I have to think, because that's how stupid I am. But it's important to get off to a great start. It's important to hopefully score first, and it's important to kind of, try to jump out to that 2-point lead early because the game's fast and furious now.
With that in mind, for years you were known as, one of the more defensive skips, I guess. I don't know whether that was fair all the time or not, but you were known for being a little more defensive in your strategy. Do you think you'll be more or less defensive with 8Ns?
I haven't played a lot of 8Ns, frankly, but I think that you have to recognize what the statistics to support. And that's mostly, you should be scoring first in an 8-end game. You don't have time to allow people to steal on you, so don't let them steal. And you still need defense. When you have a 2-point lead after 6 ends, you've got to, if it were a 10-end game, I'd still be going reasonably hard offensively. But now defense becomes hugely important. I mean, it's no different than watching a lot of other sports where all of a sudden you'll see a really strong defensive game come on to protect the lead or something, and curling's no different. So I think you need a lot of balance in this game. I think I have to be more prepared to go harder when we have hammer. But I also think when you don't have hammer, you have to figure out the way to kind of shut the door. Because if you go hard on offense when they have last rock and you give up a big end, there's no room for kind of wiggling your way back into the game.
That's true. Steals have become so rare. The force is really the issue at this point.
Yeah. I don't even mind the force, but the steals will kill you. And actually, the steal stats were still quite high for a lot of teams, for example, at this year's Scotties and Briers. So I think making sure that you keep your that you don't give up very many steals and, just kind of plug away. But you need a really healthy balance on when you have hammer, and I think you have to protect away and defend away when they have last rock, because multiple point ends in an 8-end game are rather treacherous.
Right. If you look in the curling zone, Black Book of Curling, the force efficiency really is something the best teams do very well. Forcing the other team to take one of the last rock and not giving up steals. With all your wins over the years and all those appearances at the Scotties Tournament of Hearts, you've been a bit of a polarizing figure among curling fans sometimes, Colleen. Popular with many, but some seeming to resent your success. Why do you think it's been that way?
It's always hard to know, because the only people that come out, the only people I've met at the Scott are the people that, want to have their picture taken and are so kind and wonderful that, for other people, I don't, it's really hard to know.
Just for the record, I've never quite understood it myself, but
and it's hard to. I've never met any of my detractors or people who aren't liking what I'm doing, really. And if I have met them, well, they're awfully nice to my face, so I don't know it. And so
they're Canadian nice, aren't they?
I probably go through with blinders on and you kind of understand always. There's going to be sort of critics anyhow. I mean, I remember sort of when we first won in '99, the criticism was we fluked the win, sort of, and then in 2001, it was, the ice got bad, and so they won because of the bad ice, and weren't they lucky? And it took a while for people to kind of figure out maybe we knew what we were doing. And I don't know really, because it's a good question, and I'm sure there are kind of critics, but they've never come up and talked to me, so I don't really know what they wouldn't like.
Well, it's good. One thing I think on the ASHM World Curling Tour that will help it grow is really defined personalities, to be honest. I think we need to get to a point where people cheer for a team just the way people cheer for NASCAR drivers, although I'm not a NASCAR fan, but it needs to develop that way, because you don't have the provincial, the provincial boundaries.
Yeah, and I think that, curling is going that way, where, as I said, when I've been at some of the different events and people come up and they really, really want to hug you and have your autograph and all that, and curling has discouraged that. I mean, remember a couple of years ago, we were fined for signing autographs at a Scott Tournament of Hearts, because
I was going to ask you about that.
People would come down and ask for your autograph, and you didn't want to say no, and a lot of them were little kids. So, but curling needs to embrace that side of the sport where the curlers are very accessible to the fans, and that's always been the beauty of the game, that, we're just like you. We're just like the curling fan, and when we are a fan of the game ourselves, so we understand that you're going to want to meet Kevin Martin or David Nedowin or Jeff Stoughton or Kelly Scott or Jennifer Jones. So I think that's a huge part of it. I think they have to do more in that regard. I know, for example, a couple of years ago with the CCA, I'd run out of my Team Canada shirts to give away because a lot of people, different curling clubs across the country, would ask for them for auctions. So you mail them off to them. But then when you're done your shirts, you're done. So I remember saying to Dave Merklinger, you should give us like 100. I said that even wouldn't cover the number of requests you get for this sort of stuff. And again, that's an incredible way to market. If you had all of the Scott or Briars, the players' shirts to sell.
Well, yeah, I mean, in other sports, they do. Players could be changing their shirts between every fifth end break and then selling them.
Yeah, and it would just be that if the CCA, and when I suggested that idea to them, if something like that had been embraced 10 years ago, no different than going to buy an Ottawa Senators jersey or whoever, I think it would have helped the promotion of the curlers. But I think in some ways the CCA was a little afraid of promoting the curlers too much in the game.
Yeah, they sure have been.
Perhaps worried that the curlers would become bigger than the game. But I think there's a lot of room for both. I think, the game is always going to be strong, but I think you do need to push the personalities that are in the game, because there have been so many, many great ones over the years that I've curled against that you're going, these people were stars in the sport and yet not celebrated, whether you're talking about, Connie Lalibert. I go back decades. Connie Laliberty, Lindsay Sparks, Myrna McCrory, and Marilyn Bodo. But of course, there was a real star in the game that could have even been bigger than what she was. And so I think if they had done a better job promoting earlier the curlers, that could have, perhaps put the game ahead of where it is right now.
Well, hopefully the ASHAM World Curling Tour here can step in and be that person, because I think the CCA has enough on their hands trying to build the game at the grassroots level, to be honest.
Yeah, that's absolutely true, and building the game at grassroots is hugely important. But if people at the grassroots level have role models like Brad Bouchou or Shannon Kleibrink or Kelly Scott to aspire to be like, that might encourage more grassroots players, might encourage even more juniors to take up the sport. So, I think they can go hand in hand.
Oh, they sure can, yeah. I think a big area is to make sure that we welcome people who take up the game later in life, even though mid-20s, early 30s. Those are curlers that I don't think the game does a lot for.
No, that's true. There's all kinds of... Curling's a lifetime sport, so that should be sold over and over again. Like, rather than people thinking, why is Colleen Jones still playing at whatever age? What does she have to prove? Or what is, doesn't she think she's on the downside? Who cares? It's a lifetime sport. You can enjoy it at so many levels. It's the biggest selling feature of the sport in that, holy moly, winters are long, cold, hard. And this gets you out, to a curling club to enjoy the game, sit around after, have a drink, and, it's just a lot of fun. So I think the lifetime aspect of the sport is often sort of an over-missed selling feature of the sport.
Well, maybe this new CCA executive director will tackle some of these things, and I think the ASHAM World Curling Tour is on good footing now, so I look for better things ahead. Colleen, we end with something I call the run back. I give you a topic, and you give me your thoughts on it in 1 to 3 words.
Oh, and no more than 3 words.
Oh, you know what? I'm pretty lenient. I used to be really tough, but it goes.
Okay. Oh dear.
It's all gone to heck lately. So, but I try go for 1 to 3 words. Glenn Howard was the first guy who did this, and he was awesome at it. And since then, I've let it go.
Yeah. Well, so, Glenn is a bright guy. So
he is razor sharp.
With short snappers, funny in a hurry. Yeah.
I think I gave him good topics too. So here we go. I'll start.
You better give me good topics. Okay, go ahead.
Mixed doubles.
Whoa. Wacky and wild, but a lot of fun. And there's a sport I could play. You only throw a couple of rocks every end.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. The rules are a bit complicated for me, but I'm actually in charge of running the ladder league at our club next year, so we'll see.
Yeah, we did the Continental Cup, and it is a ball. The game is so fast, and the shots are incredible because they leave the rocks up. It's a lot of fun.
The lack of sweeping that you had sweeping in the Continental Cup, and there won't be much sweeping in the real game might be odd. But,
yeah, but you could jump up and sweep your own rocks, right?
Yeah, I know. It just that always looks so dorky. You know what I mean?
It does, but hey, very European. Get used to it.
I know. We'll see. We'll have Team China with 4 people sweeping they'll be ready for it. Qualifications of the next executive director of the CCA.
Oh, that's a great question. I can't do that in 3 words.
Well, you can go, well, geez, you could do a cop-out and go smart, blah, 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 but, you know.
Definitely somebody innovative with hopefully a marketing background to see how great this
Do you
sport
favor
is.
someone inside or outside the sport?
Oh, that could be a combination. I think that the name that keeps coming up, of course, is Anne Merklinger, who's the executive director for the Canadian Canoe Association, and she would be fabulous. And of course, she is a curler as well. But
Yeah.
her background right now is canoe kayak, and she's done a great job there. But
On
it could
paper, I
be-
mean, she really would be a great candidate. I don't know Anne personally, but on paper, boy, it really makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, and I think but I think there's other people, marketing people, that would be genius to put in that have no expertise in curling, but know how to market and sell sport, and I think that they could easily look at that.
Yeah, a true maverick might be exciting, that's for sure. The Continental Cup.
I love that event. It's a lot of fun, and this is more than 3 words.
Colleen,
I
you
am
totally forgot the 1 to 3 words thing.
definitely cheating. Continental Cup, one of my favorite events. I could just say button, 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 because that's what I remember from the Continental Cup, trying to sweep it to the button against, I think it was Elizabeth Gustafson, but
All right.
anyhow.
How television coverage of curling could be improved.
They've done a phenomenal job with television coverage. Hard to know how it could be improved, except when they're doing the full events of the whether it's the Players' Championship or the Scott or the Brier, be able to bounce faster and sooner in between games, more split screen stuff.
Yeah, that would be great. I know that's an expense problem as well, but that to me would be the biggest improvement. I mean,
Yeah.
to bounce. I mean, the fact is, if you have 5 games going on at one time, to be able to bounce around would be fabulous. I know it's a question of labor and camera people and everything else, but
Yeah.
the Strauss Canada Cup.
I love that event too. I like the split round robin format. I love the ice is great and all of that sort of stuff. It's a great. It was one of my favorite events to play in, and I think they might want to look at changing locations every now and then, other than always holding it in British Columbia.
Before an empty arena.
Yeah, I think that, but it's a great event, and I think the fans, if you put that event in Saskatchewan or Manitoba for a couple of years to have the crowd ambience and make it come alive, because it needs the electricity of the fans, and that's all that's missing right now. But the curling is absolutely incredible, and it's a great event.
Yeah, that's one I don't think the CCA knows how to market, though. But anyways, that's my own opinion on it.
Well, it's one of the best events on the calendar. I couldn't love an event more, but the location right now is not right for it, and so they should really try to put it in another town. Although I understand it's because of Strasbourg, and that's their head office that they want it there, and I can understand all of that. But it would be Strasbourg company would still get all the benefits if it were moved to a.
And we'd get to watch all those great Strauss Herb commercials.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. They're a
I
great
wanna start
sponsor.
taking
I
those
shouldn't
heart
make fun of them,
drops.
but my word, they need some new commercials. That's on a
they might
podcast I can
use-
say that. You can't do that in the CBC. Hey, finally, your first national title in 1982.
Oh, that was a naive time of my life, innocent, and I thought it would be kind of, it was just such a thrilling time. But I was very naive about the game, and I thought, kind of doing that would be just a matter of routine.
Yeah, and then my follow-up is how what it felt like to go until 1999 before you won another one.
Yeah, well, it wasn't for lack of trying, although certain things like, I was in the middle of getting married and having young children and starting a career, so there were a lot of other priorities in my life at the time, which I certainly enjoyed every minute of. But I think it made it even more sweeter to wait 17 years in between championships.
I think some people might forget just how
Definitely.
young you were. How old were you in 1982?
Very.
I don't want to. I should.
Like
I'm
12.
asking a woman a question about her age.
Was
I
I
should stop.
12? I think I was 20 or just turned 21.
You know, I saw you play at the Toronto Royals in the old Molson Classic spiel right after that as a kid.
That was a good spiel, too. I love that spiel.
Yeah, it was a great spiel. I remember you guys had the Canada sweaters on. I remember actually thinking I was 13 or 14 or 15, I guess. I can't remember. But I remember thinking it was great to see someone so young who'd won a Canadian championship. So there you go.
Oh, and now I'm old, but I still want to win stuff.
Right.
I think we won that year, too.
Did you win the spiel that year?
I think so. That was a good year.
It was a great spiel, that one. It's a shame it doesn't go anymore. It was an old classic.
Yeah.
Finally, Colleen, I give every team a chance to mention their sponsors. I don't know if your new team has any yet, but if they do, let me know.
We're in the middle of lining up sponsors because this is going to be one expensive year. So if anybody's listening and is a great company that wants to support a terrific team, come find me.
All right. Well, hey, Colleen, thanks for your time. It's a pleasure to have you on, and good luck next season with this new lineup.
Thank you.
That's Colleen Jones on The Curling Show. While the calendar says it's still spring in this part of the world, I'm betting it feels a lot like summer to most curling fans. Congratulate yourself for being so hardcore that you listened to this off-season edition. Hopefully you've got a tan and a cold beverage. Here's Black Pudding.